Wonderful. Well, welcome to the Share Sex Ed Committee. Today is Monday, November 8th, 2021, and we're going to start this meeting at 5:32 this evening. Let me pull up my agenda here. All right, so we've called to order. And Andrea, should I just mention those two items now or wait until after we've done roll call?
You can do it at either time.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and do it now. So on the agenda, we have item 2.01 was for possible action, but we are going to move that to our next meeting. And the same thing looking at item 2.04, we'll move that to possibly our next meeting. So with that said, we will move on to roll call. Kelly?
Sarah Linda Kaiser.
I'm here.
Lydia DeFlorio.
Here.
Stephanie Schumann.
Here.
Vanessa Van Coor.
Here.
Kelly Roper. I am here. Manny Magana.
Here.
Andrea Thompson.
Here.
Ashley Wade. And Rabbi Benjamin Zober.
He should be joining us virtually, but he might be a little late.
He's not currently on virtually. I will let you know if that changes.
Okay, perfect.
Wonderful, thank you. So that gives us our quorum, so we'll move along. Thank you everyone for taking your time to be here tonight. So once again, we're skipping 2.01, so we're going to dive right into 2.02. Presentation and discussion of proposed Share fourth grade curriculum, including the PowerPoint lesson and materials. This item is for possible action.
We'll bring us back to the top of this lesson. And just a side note, I know there was a problem with, I believe, 2 of the slides, so I have a screenshot of those slides for all of you to see and for record. I don't know why I had such an issue with this document. So that being said, okay. So puberty standards alignment with the National Sex Education Standards. We have listed above. I will not review each of the standards, and as well as our Nevada academic content standards to support this lesson. Our objectives are describe at least 3 changes that take place during puberty, differentiate between what could be considered physical, social, and emotional changes of puberty, explain one thing they can do to manage a physical, emotional, and social change of puberty, identify a trusted adult for more information about puberty. So scrolling down, there we go. We had the activities, the 2 videos, taking care of your body during puberty and finding out who you are. And the activity is, can you identify the change? And the lesson prep is just teacher background, what to do ahead of time. Lesson intro is the same, it's consistent, but I will go over it tonight again. Share is important for everyone in the class. The goal is for every one of you to feel that these classes relate to you and your life. This curriculum and resulting class discussions are intended to be respectful and inclusive of many perspectives and allow all students to see themselves and understand their own health and sexuality. The purpose of Share is to assist you in making informed choices and avoid behaviors that put you at risk. All questions are welcome. If you don't feel comfortable asking in class, I've provided paper for anonymous questions, or you may talk with me later. We'll be talking about this as if we are scientists, doctors, because we'll be using the correct anatomical terms for our body parts. It's important that we know the correct terms for all of our body parts. The piece about slang words. If students use slang words, keep in mind that, again, this is for a little bit of teacher background knowledge, because I do have this question quite a bit from our counselors and teachers about what to do. So keep in mind that may be the only language they have heard before this class. They also may just be trying to get a rise out of you since you won't know their motivation. Should they use a slang term, gently correct them. Remind them that we are using the correct anatomical terms like scientists and ask them to continue. For example, if they were to say balls for testicles, there's likely to be some laughter. Simply say, and what is the word we learned for balls? And restate using the term testicles. So what is puberty? 4th grade. So saying something, kind of a hint to our teacher, say something like, today we're going to talk about puberty, the changes that occur and ways to deal with those changes. We're going to focus on the physical, social, and emotional aspects of puberty. Scrolling down. And then slide 2, puberty. It's the time when your body begins to develop and change as you move from kid to adult. And then some probing questions. What do you know about puberty? Probing for things like any student input that a person may experience while going through puberty. Puberty can begin anywhere from the age of 9 to the ages of 14 and may begin earlier for some or start later for others. Each person begins puberty when it's right for their body decides. Also relative to when parents begin puberty. Females often start puberty before males. Puberty does not happen all at once. It comes in stages and takes many years. Might have some signs of puberty at an early age, while other changes show up years later. Bodies are unique, so puberty is different for each person, and each person goes through it at their own pace. What starts puberty? The brain.
There for just 1 second, just to put for the record that Rabbi Benjamin Zober has arrived online. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. The brain, located in the brain, the hypothalamus gland sends special hormones to the pituitary gland, initiating the onset of puberty. The pituitary gland then sends out special hormones through the bloodstream to the reproductive organs, which begins puberty. The pituitary gland is a pea-shaped gland that sits just under the brain. What are some changes that occur during puberty? If students mentioned anything earlier, recap and probe for other changes that may occur during puberty. Changes most all bodies experience: acne, aka zits. They sweat more and it starts to smell bad. Hair grows in new places, under arms and around genitals. Pubic hair may grow more hair on arms and legs. Growing pains, pains in the arms and legs. Okay. Changes that most male bodies experience. Voice gets lower or deeper and may crack while it's changing. Penis and testicles get bigger. Hair may grow on face, chest, and back. Chest and shoulders get broader. You may have some swelling around your nipples. It usually goes away. And then changes that most female bodies experience. Breasts develop and get bigger. Hips get wider and body may become more curvy. Starting your period. Those are a lot of changes our body will go through. Let's watch a brief video on ways to take care of our bodies. And a reminder to students to pay close attention and be ready to share some ways we can manage the changes that'll occur during puberty. So taking care of your body during puberty, the video slide. Often we tend to focus on the physical changes of puberty, like we just did, but there are also social and emotional changes that occur during puberty. And hold, please. So slide 9 and 10, like I said, I do not have an idea why it will not show up on this document, but I have a screenshot of this. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Hold, please. It's a little better. Oh, no, now it's too big. Okay. Oh, well, now I have all sorts of things going on this document. I'm drawing on it, moving it. I might have to have Thomas's help here for a second. Thomas, I'm not quite sure what is going on with my my slide, my picture. Hold, please. I apologize. Okay, thank you. I just wasn't going over enough. Thank you. And instead got the purple dots. Okay, so there's slide 9 that didn't show up on the actual document. Social changes, how you interact with others. And then slide 10 is emotional changes, your feelings and emotions begin to change. Going back to our lesson. Now we're going to do an activity where we will sort the physical, emotional, and social changes into the appropriate heading. And just a side note to the committee, this is similar to one of our activities we do later on with our older kids. It's just a little bit of an easier one. And I know we've discussed as a committee to keep continuously revisiting some of the same information, because eventually we hope that this will be sticking. So that was my thought as I moved ahead with this activity. Can you identify the change? You'll be given a sheet with either a physical, emotional, or social change as a group. Again, this is totally dependent on teacher choice. They want them to do it individually as a duo or a triad. As a group, you'll decide which heading your change falls under. Once decided, one person will attach your change to the heading you feel is best fits under. So the teacher would put the social, emotional, and physical headings around the room. Each student, as was attached to this lesson, each group would have one of those changes, and they decide as a group where it goes. So the things that they would need, the 3 flip chart sheets or areas around with labels of the social, emotional, and physical changes, have students work either individually, in pairs, or in a triad. With the paper face down, pass out one sheet to each person and group. Once they all have one, have them determine as a group if their change is social, emotional, or physical. And once decided, have one group member place the change under the heading they think it fits best. When groups have finished, go over each grouping and determine as a group if it's an appropriate placement. Remind students that the many changes that occur in puberty are perfectly normal and happen at their own pace when their body decides. This is the time in life that you're beginning the long journey into adulthood. You may want to spend more time with friends than family. You may start to wonder who you will become, and your emotions might be all over the place, from super happy to tears, all within a short time period. These are only a few of the things that may happen, but they are all totally normal. And then from there, moving into puberty and finding out who you are. And then remember, if you have any more questions, you can always talk to a trusted adult, parent, guardian, trusted. It's our standard list of trusted adults. And then it rolls into the activity. Physical, emotional, social change. And so this is what a student group would get. A sheet with get acne on it, and then they would decide. So did you want me to go through all of those, or are you okay just moving on to your? Okay, I will skip to the bottom. Hold please as we quickly go to the very bottom. Okay, here we go. So, and this is answer key, also a teacher's cheat sheet to make sure that they also understand where the different changes are going to. And a teacher's guide, so to have some more talking points. Getting taller, everyone goes through puberty at different rates, is totally normal. How tall you'll be is determined by a lot by your genes, or whether your biological family members were tall or short or somewhere in between. Growing breasts, it's normal for one breast to be slightly larger than the other. Girls typically develop breasts. Some boys, however, may temporarily develop breasts. This is called gynecomastia. Okay. It's the pressure, Andrea. And it's maybe very embarrassing and sensitive. I see I missed a space there to boys. A lot of teasing and bullying can take place when this happens, which is completely inappropriate and wrong. Breast growth among boys usually goes away by itself. Weight gain. Many young people try to diet to lose weight during this time. While it's always important to eat healthy food and exercise, a lot of the weight gain during puberty is temporary and evens itself out if you maintain a healthy lifestyle. Hair, underarms, on legs, around genitals. For people with darker hair, this hair growth may be more pronounced. Some people choose to shave this hair, whether it's on the face, legs, under the arms, or elsewhere. There's no medical reason to shave. It's only about personal preference. Getting acne, pimples can appear on the face or other parts of the body, like the back or shoulders. I'm just kind of skipping around on these parts. Hair texture may change, and I do not include that as part of the activity, the hair texture. I just left that one out, but I thought it was good teacher point if somebody were to ask a question that they might have, some guidance. Hormones are raging. Hormones are the natural chemicals found in our bodies. We all have them, whether we are kids or adults. Hormones are responsible for all the physical changes in puberty, as well as some of the emotional ones. During puberty, they're present at really high levels, but they even out a bit once puberty is done. Voice deepening, it's pronounced in boys, but kids of all genders may experience a deepening of their voice during puberty. Spontaneous erections, when penises stand up by themselves, that's called an erection. This has been happening since infancy and it's totally normal, but during puberty and beyond, it can happen more often and can be more noticeable. Also, the erections can last longer. And during puberty, erections can happen out of nowhere or spontaneously. They don't even have to be thinking about or looking at anything in particular. While this can be embarrassing, they also tend to go away on their own after a short period. Voice cracks, sometimes kids' voice will deepen dramatically, going from higher to lower. Menstruation, one of the most dramatic changes a girl's body goes through is menstruating or getting their period. It's part of the normal monthly cycle where her body is preparing for a possible pregnancy by building up a lining of blood and body tissue in her uterus. Wet dreams, when guys' bodies start producing semen, that's the fluid that comes out of their penises that contains sperm, which is, as you just heard, can cause a pregnancy if it meets a woman's egg in her uterus. It's normal for the semen to come out while they sleep. This is called a nocturnal emission or a wet dream. Some guys think they've wet the bed, but they haven't. It's perfectly normal and will happen less and less frequently as they get older. Hips widen, this happens to girls and can range from subtle to more pronounced, completely normal. And acne, young people of all genders experience this at some point. Usually this is an occasional zit here or there. Sometimes it can be more serious if you get a lot of acne. Talk to a parent or caregiver. Muscle growth, although girls' bodies and muscles develop during puberty, the greatest amount of muscle growth happens to boys. Everyone is different, and even after puberty, some boys may be more or less muscular. And sweat starts to smell. So there we go. And that's the end of that lesson presentation, Ashley.
Thank you, Rochelle. I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful lesson and I appreciate the support materials. They're linked on the first couple pages there. Thank you. I'm actually, never mind. My other thoughts were for the next lesson. I'm curious if it's all right with the committee, we'll start down there, Andrea, with you and just kind of move around in a quick U shape, starting with our medical professional. Does that work for you?
Hey, Andrea Thompson for the record. I think it's a very good lesson. I think it goes over, specific things. I know we did read at least one public comment that came through email about age appropriateness. And in my opinion, it sounds to me like this is a good place to hear it first, rather than, this might be the first time that they hear something like that, but they're going to hear it likely from a peer or an older sibling. And I think, hearing it here first is probably going to be the least scary space and probably the most accurate place to hear that. So I think that this is very appropriate for age. One thing I wonder, and I'm not sure we've touched on this in other lesson plans, I always get a little concerned when we were talking about like weight gain and weight, because I get concerned about the prevalence of eating disorders among our young people. And so I don't know if there may needs to be a little bit more content to prepare the person who is presenting about those things, because I think it can sort of, from a young person's mind, come into a space where, you know, we say healthy eating, and it's like, what does that even mean? And right around, you know, this young age is when the body image piece starts. It's not necessarily that this age is binging or purging, although that can happen. And I'm certainly not the expert in eating disorders, but I definitely think it might be something to put in the teacher's guide to add a little bit more information on, you know, not just focusing on weight gain, but just like body image and change in general. So that we're not focusing on just saying, well, if you eat healthy, everything will be fine, because plenty of people eat healthy and still have an eating disorder. So other than that, I just thought it was really great. I think it's the other one that had the other video that people are. So I think, yeah, looks good. If anybody has any questions about like health stuff, let me know.
Thanks, Kelly.
This is Kelly Roper for the record. Andrea, I have a question for you because you addressed one of our public comments, not just about the appropriateness, but there was a comment about one of the videos and spraying of deodorants in private areas. So would you address that?
Andrea Thompson for the record. I rewatched the video when I got that comment. I didn't see anything in the video that said to spray it near your genitals or anything like that. It looked like they were putting it underarm. So I didn't see anything that would be too misleading in the video. Granted, if you wanted to put some information in the teacher's guide, you know, there is a lot of advertising that goes towards young people and women, especially, about making our bodies smell like fresh roses. And that's just, you know, like unicorns, and that's not necessarily what's healthy. So maybe putting some information in the teacher's guide to talk to a healthcare provider, or you know, without getting into too many specifics, like most of the things that are advertised to people are just pure garbage and probably will hurt you more than help you. So maybe just putting some more information in the teacher's guide about talking with your healthcare provider, or really just using less on your body that has chemicals and stuff contained into it. So yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you so much for that. And Kelly, thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up quick, Ashley, on that one? So thinking just perhaps the best would be for a teacher talking point would be the best is to shower or bathe regularly, correct? Or
Yes, and don't use things with extra perfumes or,
okay,
you know, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard without going too far into it. I mean, really talking with a healthcare provider is going to be best, because most of us are going to tell you, please don't use anything other than maybe unscented Dove if you have to. But for the most part, like I said, all these things like Summer's Eve, and they're marketed towards young people to smell like unicorns, is really just bad for you and will probably cause more harm than good. So maybe just putting there, yes, we want you to bathe regularly with water and a gentle soap.
okay.
You know.
Thank you so much for that. I can't see if that is Stephanie down there or who's next, if you had anything to add.
Thanks, Ashley. Vanessa Vancourt for the record. I just had a couple of points. The first was just a visual. I don't remember the slide number, but it was a slide that said, can you identify the change? It was leading into the activity. On this screen, the text was really hard for me to read. The white washed out. I don't remember having that experience on my computer, but I know 11. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was after the screenshot. So just something to, I don't know if anyone else had that experience. I'm seeing head nods. But I know it changes when we're presenting versus on your own device. So that was just an observation. And then I had a similar reaction to the weight component as what Andrea already brought up and articulated really well. I think this lesson is really great because it seems to invite a lot of conversation, and the activity is interactive. And I really like that part because I can imagine that scene in the classroom. But the weight component just concerned me a little bit, because I know that they might be on the young end of, as Andrea noted, perhaps not yet dealing with those issues, but it just seems like a much bigger issue to introduce without the proper vocabulary or resources for the person teaching it. So again, I'm not an expert in that, but I would love to see some language or resources or materials that could support that, or perhaps reward it to maybe not even address weight loss efforts, and maybe just address from a factual standpoint that puberty causes our bodies to change, and many bodies will often gain weight, and just leave it at that without even introducing, or fluctuate weight without introducing the idea of dieting. Because I think that's what that caught my attention. Those are my only 2 points.
Thank you so much for that, Vanessa. Kelly?
Andrea, I have a weight follow-up question. So because my daughter's 14 and we've been going to the allergist like very frequently, and she gets weighed constantly. So she's seeing weight gain. But, I'm wondering if in here, it's somewhat of a no-brainer at some point for normal weight gain because their bones are bigger, their muscles are bigger, right? I know that there could be fluctuating bodies, but a lot of this weight gain for people, when they see a number go up, like, oh my gosh, I'm so much heavier, it's because their body parts are bigger, right? Or is there any way of would we say anything like that obvious connection when it comes to weight gain, or is that silly?
Andrea Thompson for the record. I don't think it's silly. I think, what we could put is that there could be weight changes rather than putting weight gain. Some people will gain, some people will lose. You could put weight and body composition changes perhaps, because that would kind of take into account, like, yes, of course, as we get older, our weight is going to get bigger because we are growing taller, especially at this age. I think we just need to look at the language really, and then also maybe put in the teacher's note maybe some resources if there are more questions. If someone starts to probe more about like, well, should I eat healthy? Should I, asking more of those questions, maybe that's a reason to check in with that student later and say, are you having a healthy relationship with food? Because it's very likely that at this age, they could potentially start developing an unhealthy one, probably from giving cues like this, like weight changes could happen. And if you eat a healthy lifestyle, then everything will be fine. So I think we could use maybe body composition, and you could put in there, you have more muscle, or, you're getting taller, your bones are bigger. But I think, making it so that we are still at this grade level, but we're just saying that your weight changes and not necessarily that you're going to automatically gain weight, because also it comes from the other side where there's people who are just built very small and slender, and then they, are worried they're not gaining weight the way that they should. And that becomes like, am I strong enough? Am I, I'm tall and lanky. So I think if we just look at the language, it will probably fix the problem that is like kind of triggering us a little bit.
Thank you so much. Lydia?
Lydia DeFloria for the record. I'm hearing what you're saying. I think, one of our goals has always been to present information that is medically accurate and scientifically sound. When you talk about puberty, right? We have that slide in there already about the pituitary gland sending being triggered and setting off the whole puberty system. The first kind of step, the first thing that happens when that they call it the HPG axis, when it's activated, is an adolescent growth spurt, and that's medically what it's called. And you are going to gain in muscle mass, you are going to gain in fat, you're going to gain in height. That's the first step of puberty. A lot of kids, a lot of college kids that I work with, they don't realize that. They think, oh, puberty starts when I get my period, or puberty starts when I grow boobs or whatever. And that's not it. The first step of puberty is that adolescent growth spurt. So I think just adding that piece in there, and I'm happy to get you some language if you would like,
That'd be
Michelle.
great. Mhm.
But just adding that in, I think is simple enough for that particular piece.
Thank you, Lydia, for clarifying that. Do you have anything else to add about the rest of the lesson?
I do, but Manny has his hand up, so I don't know if he wants to say.
Oh, I can't see. I'm sorry, Manny, you're cut off over there. Go for it, dude. Sorry.
Manny Magana for the record. I just want us to also trying to be aware of when we're constantly talking about healthy eating. One of the things we also have to make sure we're aware of is that not all of our students are going to have access to healthy food on a consistent basis. So we also don't want to potentially damage them and make them suddenly become aware of the fact that they don't have the ability to access healthy food too. I'm not really sure how exactly we would address that in terms of constantly telling them healthy eating, but something that we have to make sure that we are aware of. I mean, if I remember looking at it right, I think it's potentially like 30% of our students may not have consistent access to healthy food. So something that we also need to make sure that we're considering.
Thank you for that. I think it might even be 40%. It's pretty, I forget. Yeah, it's really up there. Thank you for pointing that out, Manny.
So do you think it would be best just to remove the healthy eating comment? Let's see. Was it in my teacher's notes? Where was it, Kelly? Okay. Yeah. Social, emotional. Physical growth, weight gain. There we go. All young people gain weight during puberty. Sometimes this is due to physical growth. Sometimes this is due to an increase in fat of the body. Both are completely normal. So again, this is teacher background, what are you thinking? Sarah's hands up.
Sarah Kaiser for the record. So I have to say, I actually really appreciate this discussion of weight gain. And I think that I have 3 children and they all gained weight during puberty and they all have really different body compositions now and they all changed. And you mentioned that they grow into it. So I don't want us to, I respect all of that. And I think that's all true, but I don't want us to dance around it to the point that the kid who is gaining weight hasn't really gotten the clear information that weight gain is one of the things that can happen and it's related to puberty. So I just really appreciate that piece. And I don't know about the healthy eating piece, and we can't tell them, we do want to tell them, could we add something into the teacher's notes that if that was a problem for them, could they talk to their counselor or their parents? There are some resources that might be available if that was truly, they thought don't ever have anything. I hate to just not present the factual information. I appreciate that it's there. So if we can keep it there, but also make it sensitive, I really would appreciate that.
Stephanie?
Thank you, Ashley. Stephanie Schumann for the record. I just have a follow-up to that because I think Sarah makes a great point. It's important to keep it that conversation going, but I'm just wondering, we do such a great job of talking about emotional health, and the lessons that we discussed last meeting were just so amazingly focused on each child thinking highly of themselves and having good self-confidence. And so I'm just curious if maybe we should have a slide or two that invite some of that conversation, and then you could address some of the healthy lifestyle topics and still talk about the weight gain or weight composition or body composition. So that could be too much or that could be too far. But I think it would be nice to see a slide or two that ties back in that kind of who am I topic, but that might be too much.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm sorry, Ashley, quick question based on that. I wanted to make sure that that lesson with the mirror that we all really liked, and that was 4th. I just wanted to clarify. Again, that's what I was wondering, because if it was 5th grade, then we're adding, which would be okay, something, we're not adding on to something they will be seeing that year. It's something new. So if it needs to be added, then I would like to think about what would that look like. I just wanted to clarify it wasn't in 4th grade.
Andrea Thompson for the record. Did you have I know we went over the activity, was weight gain one of the ones that it'll be like a physical change? Like if you scroll up.
Okay.
It was
I will
under
scroll
the,
because I cannot,
under here. Oh,
yeah,
see,
there it is, right
Okay,
there.
So it's
Yep.
listed as something
Uh-huh.
that, a physical change, which I don't think that's a bad thing to say, like, yes, you could and likely will gain weight. I think we just need to arm the teacher with more information than what's just listed there. It doesn't mean, I think the lesson's very good. We don't want to say that they're not going to gain weight because most will gain some kind of weight. I think just maybe adding in some language.
Well,
Like
you-
it could be weight change and body change, so that when those questions are coming up, then the teacher has more information.
You had mentioned, or throughout this discussion, the weight and body composition changes. Would you prefer that? So it's not just weight gain, because we're all talking about how their body composition is changing throughout puberty. So it's more than just weight gain, right? I mean,
Is
that's
that
up to
good? I
you.
mean, do you feel, and Manny, maybe you can answer this, like for a fourth grader, are they gonna be like, sure, body composition?
Well, that would be a discussion, right?
I mean, they're not gonna know if you say body composition, they're gonna be like, yeah, cool, composition, that's a cool word, I like it. To really go in depth on it and really explain to them how body composition works, I mean, it could invite that conversation. I think we
Body
could
size.
potentially, explain to them, I mean, maybe if we just say body, like your body is going to change and every body is going to end up different. I mean, we could just keep it simple so that way, no matter who hears it, they understand it.
So I'm just jumping in with you all. I hope that's okay today. Thinking along that could be then a teacher point to have some, your body composition, right? So we wouldn't have that necessarily as the slide, right? Your body changes. Instead of weight gain, body changes, and then having that point for that teacher talking point to say body changes. And these are some things, your body composition is going to change, and that's weight gain and size and shoulders and hips, and I don't know. Out for you all.
This is actually Wade for the record. I agree with everyone. I really appreciate Sarah Linda's point that weight gain is a thing. And that is what I've been telling all of my kids, right? Yep, you are getting bigger, you are getting heavier. That's a part of puberty, that's a part of growing into your adult body. So I'm thinking I would like to see it explicitly there as a physical thing, but that does not mean, I think, first of all, can we take a second to recognize how traumatizing, obviously for all of us, how traumatizing it is, the heft and the weight of, right? The messaging that we've been receiving, change the way you're eating because there's something wrong with your body. That's, I think, why we're circling around this. So it sounds like, and we don't have a motion on the table or anything, but it does sound like all of us are in agreement that recommending diet changes, we don't want even for the teachers. And it does sound like generally we want kids to know that their weight does change. It's just that possibly also we would like them to know the reasoning or the why is because there's muscle and fat and bone changes. It kind of sounds like, okay. We don't even have to come to, I think, a resolution on that this exact moment. What I would like to do is if we can set that aside for just 1 minute, it is super important and obviously been an influence in all of our lives. And I would like to see, is there anything else in the lesson that we would like addressed beyond the weight gain and the food and things related to that?
It keeps us honest. Keeps us
Keeps us
straight.
honest. This is Lydia DeFlorio. For the record, I just have a couple of questions. So this is the first we're seeing of the new fourth grade curriculum. What else is going to be in? What are the other units, if you will, or lesson plan? Like just the general theme? Like, is this what it is for puberty? And let me state why I'm asking. There's some concepts in here like that aren't really explained in the slides, but they show up in the activity that I'm just curious, are they?
I'm going to
explained?
interrupt,
Like-
Lydia. I really appreciate that. And I would like the scope and sequence. However, that is not on our agenda item.
I
So right now we can
understand
only
that.
discuss this lesson.
I understand that, but I want to know if my child's gonna hear the word wet dream for the first time in a with a pair or in a triad or if he's gonna hear that, from the teacher first, because only some of these things that are in the changes show up on the actual slides. And so I'm curious, and I'm not
That's a
saying
great question.
against it, I'm not saying whatever, I'm just saying, I want to know is the first time my child sees the word menstruation, or the first, no, because I think that's on one of the slides, but wet dream, when they see that word, is that going to be with their partner, or is that going to be on the slide? A lot of the social and emotional, all of the social and emotional changes, the slide says social changes, right?
Mhm.
Emotional changes, but there's no dialogue or slides that go with that. So is this just an activity of the kids guessing and they're kind of learning through doing the activity,
no,
or is it?
So
that
thank
make
you.
sense?
No, I totally understand what you're saying, Lydia, because I had the same question as I was going through it, and I don't think I gave clear enough directions, and thank you for bringing that up this evening. Are you thinking it would be best? These are, and I will tell you, in our current fourth grade curriculum, as old as it is, these are very similar as far as topics that they do discuss in fourth grade, nocturnal emissions, but we in here, and I appreciate it too, they also discuss it as a wet dream because our kids are using that kind of terminology. And it's in a video and that's it. So perhaps it would be best to introduce all of the changes on the activity, correct? Go through all the changes, and we don't have to talk about specific emotional, social, because that's kind of a fun sorting game at the end, once they understand exactly what each card is referring to. Is that what you're thinking would be the farmer? Okay.
Again, I'm not, it's not that I have some big problem with it or
No, no,
anything.
no.
I'm just curious, like, usually the way that the other lessons have gone has been that the activity kind of it reinforces or tests kind of their knowledge on what they just learned. And in this, it looks like the activity is almost introducing new information. And so that's why I was asking about other things, not because I'm trying to get off topic, but I'm just, if there's another lesson and they've already
Right.
learned some of this
No.
stuff, then well, this makes total sense as a review and whatever.
So it's almost there, a whole,
all.
I have a whole existing in this as, okay.
That's all I'm going with it. And
Okay.
I'll leave it there.
No,
So.
that's a fair enough question.
Thank you for bringing that up, Lydia. I'm looking on the left here and I can't see Manny and Stephanie. Did you have anything? And okay, I see Kelly's hand.
Lydia, I'm on slide, Kelly Rober for the record, I'm on slide 6. And it says male bodies, voice gets lower or deeper, may crack, penis and testicles get bigger, hair may grow on face, chest and shoulders get broader, you may have swelling. Would that be where it would go, like as a bullet point there? Clearly wet dreams jumped out at you, but is there anything else? Is that where you're saying it would?
What's on those slides or what's in that activity, so what's on the slides of the changes that we're telling them to happen, I don't think it's a huge thing, but it's a lot of people,
Can you use your mic?
it matches. Can you say that again? Sorry. Yeah, just to go through the activity, and we have the slides on slide 5, 6, and 7, where we're going over what some of the changes are. And I think just making sure that they're aligned. If it's not completely obvious and it's the first time they're gonna hear it, then we could add it to the slide. That's all.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
Okay, unless there's anything else coming around the circle, this is Sarah Kaiser for the record. I love this lesson.
Do it.
Thank you. I think it's really, really careful and neat and clean. I just had a couple of things on the slides. On slide 6, you change voice on the final bullet point. You go from third person to second person. Your nipples may swell, and that gives it sort of more importance than the other bullet points. So and it's also one that might be kind of giggly and uncomfortable too. So I wouldn't change voice, just leave it at the same. I might recommend that. And then I had the same responses as Vanessa did to slides 9, 10, and 11. From a visual access perspective, I think there were text contrast problems. And that was all I had.
Thank you, ma'am.
So Kelly Roper for the record, I'm next on the horseshoe. I would say just from pages 43 to the end of the lesson, there are a couple of places just as far as grammatical where two words were together that need a space. And then I was wondering on slide 9 and 10, I just was wondering, is that all the information there is? And you guys have already talked about contrast, but like maybe making the font much bigger so it grabs their attention as opposed to get lost in the people. But if that's all that's there, maybe it take up more of the space. And then in the video that I believe there was public comment on, but there was something I had noticed, I believe it's the second video about how you might be feeling. I don't know what the name of that one is, where it starts going into, you might start having sexual thoughts. And so the public comment was talking about, you know, whether it was appropriate for like 9-year-olds to start saying you might be thinking of sex. I know when I was watching it, I liked everything. And then when the boat starts floating through like breasts, I was a little bit like, I didn't know if I like that so much, like what's going on here. You guys can comment or tell me, Kelly, it's fine and why, that's okay. But during the video, when I left the video and I came back a couple times to make sure I wasn't crazy and it was consistent, there was a little icon that popped up in the right that was like, it said masturbation, like almost like click on this video if you want to, you know, there was, and I clicked and it wasn't a maze, but it was talking, it was this whole 2-minute video of masturbation, which I know we're not doing, but it was there on the video. And so maybe in, if this video goes through, making sure teachers are well aware that it's going to pop up and click away from it, as opposed to, I don't know how many seconds it was on, but on long enough that if somebody was just staring, they'd be like, oh, what's that? And, you know, I don't know that that's something we wanted in 4th grade. So I throw those thoughts out.
Thank you, Kelly, for your keen eye.
Hi, Stephanie Schumann for the record. I think overall, I did really like the lesson, having a 4th grade boy right now and kind of evaluating it as if we were going to come, he was going to come home and we were going to talk about these things. How comfortable would I be as a parent to visit all these topics? And I do struggle a little bit with the wet dreams without some further explanation. I think if that topic were to come home to a parent, there could be some panic that maybe a parent wouldn't necessarily be prepared for. So I think if there was more information to go along with it, I do agree with Lydia in that sense that it would be helpful to just have some more information. And I also agree with Kelly on that particular video. I did struggle with that video. I was not overly happy with it. And so I don't know if maybe there's another option. But overall, those were all the things that I had.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Manny Magana for the record. I just went through and kind of rewatched what you were talking about, Kelly, to see if it does pop up. And you're right, in the top right-hand corner, it says suggested masturbation, totally normal. So it does pop up for a couple of seconds. I think it's at like 1:30 or so. But I echo a lot of everybody else's sentiment on this. Some of the worries that we have on there, just thinking about presenting this to a 4th grade group and a 4th grade group of students. I know that if I'm presenting this to both boys and girls together, I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of public questions out loud. I'm going to definitely have a lot of questions, most likely written down, that I'm going to have to address individually. Thinking about the wet dreams portion of that part in terms of guys, I imagine that most counselors would give a quick just explanation as to what it is and let them know it's perfectly normal and natural. In terms of for girls, I mean, majority of our counselors are females, so they could probably, like, if they say that, hey, your breasts are going to grow and some of them might be different sizes, they're going to be more likely to believe that from the counselors because they've obviously already gone through that. I don't know myself, obviously, if my girls will believe it because, you know, I'm not a girl, but that's nothing we can really control. Overall, though, I see where some of the worries are in terms of the video. I think the information is really, really good, but I see where some of the visual effects could potentially deter people from what the message of the video is. I don't know if there is a better video, but I know at least in terms of the information, I think it's really valuable and it's also engaging enough that I know that the kids will watch it and they'll listen to it. But again, though, Stephanie, like if you're worried about, like, I don't know where we might be able to find as valid information also though. But yeah, I get where the worries are coming from. Overall, I'd say this is a better lesson than what I presently have to work with. And so I do appreciate a lot of that in terms of more detailed information, going a little bit more in depth on some things. And yeah, I like this lesson a lot better than what we currently have available. The only thing that I would have is slide 13, maybe change some of the colors of the boxes for some of our kids that might be struggling with differentiating colors. Aside from that though, Rochelle, I mean, I get everybody else's worries, but overall, I think it's a very good lesson.
Thank you, Manny. I really appreciate your input on that. Andrea?
Okay, Andrea Thompson for the record. So when I was watching the video, I think we have to think of a couple things. One, we're watching this as an adult and they're watching it as kids. I don't think they're necessarily going to, like, if I showed that to my kiddo, probably not going to know that there's breastfeeding, although as a breastfeeding mom, he might, you know, because we're very open in our house, right? So I did initially think, well, okay, I have to think about, you know, I have a kiddo who is a first grader and how am I going to feel when I have to share this with my kid in 3 years? And then I thought to myself, that's probably my own discomfort and my own insecurities that are happening, that my kid's getting older. I have to start having this conversation. And I think the reality is because those hormonal changes are likely happening and we're happening much earlier than they used to. I mean, this may not have to be a conversation 10, 20 years ago when middle school was the really main focus, but now we're looking at sometimes even third graders who are going through these physical changes. And so as healthcare providers and as parents, we have to remember that it's uncomfortable for us because our kids are getting older and we sometimes don't want to accept that I have to talk about this content with my kids and it feels uncomfortable, but I think it's still very appropriate because there are likely children, you know, and they are children, but there are some in that grade level who really do need this content. So I think it's important that we arm our parents with this information. And my hope is obviously that parents would look at this information and have that conversation with their kids. I know that that's not always an option, but I still think this is really good content and information that is important for them to hear even at this young, what we think is a tender age. But I can tell you as a healthcare provider, it's getting younger and younger every year. And, you know, we have to continue to arm them with good knowledge and not feel like this is a shameful thing to learn about. You know, if we tell these young people, like, you might think about what sex means, that's probably going to happen. I mean, my kindergartner was telling me they had a boyfriend and girlfriend at school. What does that mean? You know, I'm like, holy, put your pants on, here we go, you know? So, and I'm open with these conversations. So when you think about when these things make you uncomfortable, I would challenge a parent to say, is that because you're uncomfortable or that your kid's not really ready to talk about it? You know, we're not going to put ideas necessarily most often in people's minds about what to do with this information. It's kind of like asking about suicide. You're not going to tell somebody, if you ask them, are you thinking about this? That's not going to give them that idea, right? And that's pretty common in most of this information, right? We're not giving them ideas, we're giving them knowledge, and they're less likely to engage in inappropriate activity later. So I get your reservations. My hope, though, is that I do think they need this content from a healthcare standpoint. And it's hard for me as a mom, too, because I also have to think about my kids are getting older, but I want them to have this knowledge and know that if that happens, they can come talk to me rather than let's not talk about it because you're not ready, because that's when something scary is going to sneak up on you as a parent, right? So that's my 2 cents as a healthcare provider / mom.
Could I ask
Thank you
one
for that.
quick? Oh, sorry, Ashley. Could I just ask one quick clarifying question? In terms of this, I know that we typically have a order that we follow. This is going to be the first lesson, correct?
In our previous lessons, we left it up to counselor or teacher, which
Okay.
ones they wanted to teach first. So that is a really interesting question, Manny. It was a question that I've had as I was writing these lessons and as we move into the next lesson, if you would prefer a specific order, you know,
I
as we're
would,
talking about body parts and then moving into puberty.
I would recommend that you put them in order,
Okay.
but if a counselor feels comfortable to kind of or present them however they feel best to present them,
Mhm.
then obviously they'd have that option. But I know with some people, they prefer to have them set up in order. This way they know, oh, I do this lesson first, this lesson, then this lesson. But just a suggestion for you. I
Okay.
mean,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Kelly
That's a
Roper,
great
for the
question.
record, I agree with that in regard, I mean, I know, I totally understand they've been free, but like when it's 4th grade and it's the first time,
Mhm.
it's not a bad idea to make sure the first time that they hear it is in a particular like body parts or what have you first before we get into the other aspects.
Right, Andrea Thompson for the
Thank you.
record. Logistically, is it hard for us to do that though? Because I know when we have a lesson plan, we just have to look at that lesson plan and we can't deviate from that. So I wonder as a committee, like how we can even do that? Because it may be something where once we finish going over 4th grade, that we go back and maybe put that as a agenda item to order them, because we can't really deviate while we're here. Does that make sense? Is that okay, attorney? Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I think I'd just like to add my 2 cents real quick as a mom on the sensitivity of the topic. And then if we can come to some kind of preparedness for emotion, I'd be prepared to hear one of those. So I would just add, I've shared with this committee before. I've been doing this for a long while, actually, if COVID's been going on for 2 years. I've shared with this committee before that the first day of my oldest kiddo went to 4th grade, they came home with a rape joke. And I don't know if I've shared with this committee or not, but my younger son, the second week of 2nd grade, his neighbor friend came over to visit with a cell phone with porn playing on it. You know, and that was of course not the family's intent with that. But I just do think Andrea is right that we need to kind of think of are these our feelings rather than the feelings of our kids, but also they live in the world that they live in, and withholding information from them about something such as a wet dream does not mean that they've not heard about it before. It just means that we haven't given them the space to learn about it in an appropriate way. So I would just ask everybody to think about that for a little bit. Okay, does anybody have any ideas on emotion?
Do we have public comment?
Sorry. Do we have public comment? Thank you.
Hi, yes, we've received electronic public comment from Christine McAvoy.
Thank you, sir. And is there any other public people ready for public comment at this time?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so if anyone had a motion, we'd be ready. Otherwise, we're left in perpetual discussion. Kelly.
Kelly Roper, for the record, I would just like to move that we send this lesson back to Rochelle where she can make changes that we've discussed and bring it back to us for us to look over.
Thank you, Kelly. I would second that. Any discussion on that?
Rochelle, do you need any more information from us, or do you feel like you'll be able to go back and get as much information so that we can look at a good lesson plan a revised one. Sorry.
Well, in that case,
Yeah, do you have enough information or do you just want to, do you need any more clarification to what to change?
based on our conversation tonight, I will go back through the audio and listen to it. I mean, I have notes all over the place on the weight gain, body composition, all that discussion that went back and forth. I would just feel much more comfortable for this lesson to come back with our changes that are kind of all over the place. And because it was really good discussion this evening, I would not feel comfortable making those changes and then sending on without your preview. So I appreciate that motion.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Rabbi. Any opposed, say no. And the motion by Kelly, seconded by myself, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Ashley, can we take a quick break, please?
Yes,
Perfect.
absolutely. Is 5 good for you, or do you want 10?
Is 5 good or would 10 be better? Okay.
All right. Okay, I'll see you all at 6:37. All righty, at 6:39. And we'll return. Let me pull up my items here. All right, so we're looking at item 2.03, presentation and discussion of the proposed share lesson plans and accompanying materials for understanding our bodies.
Okay. I had the very quickest snack ever. Let me bring up the lesson. Understanding our bodies. Again, same format with the standards at the top, the National Sex Ed standards, as well as our Nevada academic content standards supporting the content that we're putting forward. The objectives of this lesson: to correctly identify at least 4 body parts of the biological female genitals, correctly identify at least 4 body parts of the biological male genitals, describe why it's important for them to know the correct names for the genitals, identify trusted adults who students can ask questions about puberty and adolescent health. Activities, there's a Simon Said, it's pretty basic for head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And then a body parts review. The lesson prep, there's no videos that go along with this lesson. Lesson prep was just preparing some Post-its for the body part review. And then the lesson intro, this is the same as the previous one, so I won't reread it because I just read it to you. And then the use of slang is exactly the same as I read previously. Rolling into slide 1, understanding our bodies for our 4th grade. Introduce the lesson by saying something like, today we're going to talk about bodies, including parts that everyone has in common, parts that we have that are different, and parts that are usually covered when we are in public. Explain that it's also important that everyone with a body knows how their body works and how to take care of it, so we can all be healthy and safe. Have students name body parts that most people have in common. So possible responses could be arms, legs, feet, fingers, head, eyes, mouth, etc. Some students may mention that not everybody has 2 arms or all 10 fingers. Acknowledge by saying that's true and not everyone is the same, and everyone's body is fine just the way it is. And then just a quick Simon Says. Simon Says head, shoulders, knees, and toes. We're going to play a quick game of Simon Says. Stand up. When I say Simon Says, point to the body part, and I have the real basic body parts. So call out different body parts while asking students to point to that body part: eyes, nose, arms, legs, knees, etc. As students point to the specified body part, have them explain what the body part is used for. Eyes, seeing, nose, smelling, and breathing. Ask, even though we all have a nose, they all look the same? Do our ears look the same? We all have skin. Does that look the same? Our body parts may do the same thing, but they can look very different. We're all humans with bodies special to us. And so then moving on to slide 3, the female and male bodies. Say something like, we know there are lots of body parts that all bodies have in common, but there are some parts that some people have and some that others have. This includes our sexual and reproductive systems. Sexual systems are used for having a sexual relationship with another person when you're older, if you choose to do that. Reproductive systems are used in making and having babies when you're older again, if you choose to do that. Today, we're going to talk about some of those parts. These parts are usually covered by clothing or bathing suits. These parts are sometimes referred to as private parts or genitals. And a note to the teacher, when the word penis, vulva, and vagina are first said out loud, there's likely to be a big reaction, giggling, laughter, embarrassment. Perfectly okay. Allow the students a few minutes to laugh and get it out of their systems, and then ask, why do we laugh when we hear these terms, penis, vagina, and vulva, and maybe even breasts? Be prepared to have a brief discussion about this. It's important to acknowledge their discomfort and normalize the use of the proper terms. Tell students it's perfectly okay to feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, since we hardly hear the words penis, vagina, and vulva, or some of the other words we will discuss, but that it's important to learn them. Why do you think we need to learn about these parts? Most likely will be silence. That's just my guesstimate of student reaction. But hopefully probing for, it's important to know the correct terms of our body parts. Stress the importance of knowing the scientific terms for health and safety reasons. Genitals are generally covered up with a bathing suit or underwear. So the female body, most girls have a vulva. The name of the area between the legs. The vulva describes the area with the urethra, the front opening where urine or pee exits the body, and the vagina, which is the middle opening and a little bigger and is used for having a baby. The anus is the third opening, located towards the back, and is where a bowel movement or solid waste or poop exits the body. A person with a vulva has 3 openings between their legs and a very sensitive little spot towards the top above the urethra called the clitoris. Often girls wear a bathing suit that also covers their nipples on their chest. Their chest will develop into breasts when they get older and go through puberty. Breasts and nipples can be how mothers feed milk to their babies. Both people and animals that are mammals can feed their babies this way. And then the activity is the body part review for the vagina, urethra, vulva, clitoris, nipples, and anus. So having the blank slide without the terms up there. After you've discussed what we just talked about, asking for volunteers, giving each volunteer one of the 6 Post-its with the body part that you just discussed. As you read the term on the Post-it, have the volunteer place the Post-it in the correct location on the slide. Students can ask for help from the class if they're unsure of the location. Gently correct any errors and review the function of each part, again, as it's labeled by the student. Continue with all 6 labels until all are correctly placed. Moving on to the male. Teacher note, circumcision is the surgical remover of the skin covering the tip of the penis. They're both showed in the PowerPoint. Most boys have a penis and a scrotum between their legs. The penis has a hole in it called the urethra, just like the girls, where urine or pee exits the body. The scrotum is behind the penis, and its job is to hold the 2 round organs called testicles. The testicles are important for when a boy grows up and goes through puberty. A boy also has an opening where a bowel movement, solid waste, or poop exits the body called an anus, just like a girl. Boys also have nipples, but usually do not cover them up when wearing a swimsuit. And then the same thing, a body part review with the penis, scrotum, testicles, anus, nipples, and urethra of the body parts. And then having that's exactly the same with the 6 volunteers, just different names on the Post-its. As you read the term on the Post-it, have the volunteer place the Post-it in the correct location on the slide. Students can ask for help from their class if they are unsure. Gently correct any errors and review the function of each part, again, as it's labeled by the student. Continue with all 6 labels. And then different terms for the genitals, student slang. And I put this as a teacher comfort as far as counselor, a teacher who's teaching it. If you do not feel comfortable with the group and sharing the slang students may have heard, please give examples and move on. So explain to students that there may have heard different words to refer to genitals that we just talked about. Ask for a few examples. Some terms may be used at home, such as a PP, privates, girl parts, etc. Ask why it's important to know the correct terms. Probe for it's important to know the correct words so you can explain to a trusted adult if something is wrong or not feeling right. And then a lesson review. Can you name a body part that most girl bodies have, but not boys? Vagina, clitoris, vulva. Can you name a body part that most boy bodies have, but not girls? Penis, testicle, scrotum. Can you name a body part that both boys and girl bodies have? Urethra, anus, nipples. And I just read exactly what is down here. And most people have a vulva and a vagina or a penis and testicles, but some people's bodies can be different. Your body is exactly what is right for you. And then conclude by reminding students that they have more questions, please talk to a trusted adult. And I'm sure, Manny, I have a problem with the red in the healthcare. And the yellow. I know. You know, it always looks so great when I have it at home and then I put it up here. I'm like, I see. And that brings us to the end. It's pretty short and to the point.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. I was really pleased with this lesson. I was really happy to see the visuals and the just wonderfully inclusive language and all of it. So thank you very much for that. If you all don't mind, we'll do our horseshoe thing again, if beginning with Andrea, if she has anything to add. Oh, you want to, we can go the other way, whatever you want.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. So again, also, Rochelle, I really do like this lesson. I think that this is a awesome lesson. I had two, aside from, the boxes, I had two potentials, things I think we could possibly add. The first one would be we maybe add just in the notes or somewhere else that we explain that we're going over the I don't know if we want to say the biological body or the body that you were born with, because I can tell you personally, I've already had few experiences with some students that already at the fourth grade that are identifying differently. So just to kind of make sure that we let them know that we're explaining the bodies that, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what word I want to use there, and I'm drawing a complete blank on how we originally identified it on previous lessons, but I know I'll trust all of you to help me on that one. And then the last one would be after slide, let's see, where is it? After slide 8, I think it would be maybe important that we add that bullet point to an extra slide where you say that your body is exactly what is right for you. I think it would be really important that we emphasize that, because this also would incorporate like if again, like kind of the weight gain, weight loss thing, if you're bigger, taller, for our girls, if they're starting to worry about like, oh, well, so-and-so has breasts and I don't, things like that, we can make sure that we emphasize your body is how it's supposed to be right now, and that is how you should be. Don't try to be somebody else. I don't know what words we can use, but maybe we just take that and put it on something. Aside from that, though, I agree. This is a very good lesson. I would love if I could actually teach this lesson now to make it easier, but that's okay. Good job though, Rochelle.
Thank you, Manny. We'll do Stephanie and then Rabbi, if you have something to add after Stephanie. Great.
Thanks, Ashley. Stephanie Schumann. I really enjoyed the lesson. I thought it was really well done, very simple and easy to follow, and provided just great information. I was curious, how long should this lesson take? Like, what would be an average amount of time?
I'll answer that for you real quick, Stephanie. I would say this lesson, because I'd want to make sure I get questions answered. Introduction to it, make sure that they're okay with hearing words, penis, vagina, and everything else. I would say this is maybe a 30, maybe if I have a really inquisitive class, 45 minutes max is where I'd look at this, just to make sure we have enough time to go through everything.
Thanks, Manny. That's super helpful. I really enjoyed the section that in the teacher's notes about asking for terms that they hear at home. And then also stressing the importance of why it's good to know the correct terms. I think there's quite often in my line of work, there's many children that I encounter that don't know the proper terms. And so I think it's so important that we make sure we're defining that right out the gate. This is their first year. And so I did really appreciate that slide. So great lesson.
Thank you, ma'am. Kelly?
Kelly Roper for the record. I loved the pictures and the skin color of the kids in the diagram. I thought that was great. I loved the section where you took the time to say, why do we laugh? And normalize that, just because that is, again, this is the first lesson. We know it happens, and just to get that out and kind of be an icebreaker of sorts. There is the part where it talks about, for the very first time, in a teacher note, maybe page 4-ish, where it says, stress the importance of knowing the scientific terms for health and safety reasons. So I had made a note for myself, like, what exactly are those? And then you did answer it later on down the lesson. Maybe just, since this is the beginning and I know teachers will read through the whole thing, just say these will be discussed later in the lesson, or, just looping it down to it will be down there. Maybe not, maybe it's not necessary. That was my first thought when I saw it. And then the only thing I wondered, this is maybe silly wording. It was talking about with the boy's body. Boys also have nipples, but usually do not cover them up when wearing a swimsuit. I totally get where you're going. But in the world of sun shirts, I think a lot of kids wear sun shirts, and a lot of boys do. So maybe instead of usually, maybe don't always, or I don't know. I see nods. So maybe somebody else could help me with verbiage there. But I think it's important because a lot of boys do wear sun shirts. So are they weird then? They don't want to think that. But great lesson.
That's a great point. Thank you, Kelly. Rabbi, I accidentally skipped you after I promised you a turn. Do you?
Quite all right. Rabbi Benjamin Zober for the record. I want to echo a little bit of what Manny Magana said and hold that up, because I'm struggling a little bit with the language about your body is exactly what is right for you, because I think that for some people, their body as they're born into it is not right for them. Not so much in terms of body positivity, but in terms of transgender issues and things like that. And I'm not entirely sure how the wording is. I having been through enough of these, I sense that we could go for hours trying to wordsmith the right pieces with that. But I think it is important that we acknowledge that, because this kids at this age are starting to often have a sensibility about, am I a boy, am I a girl, what does that mean? And as we talk about the corresponding parts and those sorts of things, I think avoiding any sorts of frustration or making what is already a difficult thing to navigate for anyone, let alone young kids. I think we would do them a disservice if we're pigeonholing the language. I think we can still hold up things about body positivity without running afoul of that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for saying that. I really appreciate that. Because currently I know 2 fourth grade students in Washoe County who are transgender. So I think it's a really, really great point that you bring that up.
Okay, I'm next in line, Sarah Kaiser for the record. And actually that's a nice transition to what I was gonna say, I think. I'm wondering if we elevate the idea I don't want to wordsmith, but if we elevate the idea that difference in bodies is valuable without necessarily saying your body is the right thing for you, if that might help elevate there are so many different kinds of bodies that look different and develop differently, and that's good. I don't know if that's something to think about. I really like, on that same note, though, I like the fact that almost every single time you talk about, I think every time you talk about most bodies, so that it's really not saying this is the only way that it's going to look. And I really appreciate that. I noticed it and I appreciated it. I seem to be the parallelism police today. There was one slide that you were talking about differences between boys and girl bodies. And I think you meant boy and girl bodies. And it just, the sentence again has a slightly different meaning. So I don't remember which slide it was, but I think that S needs to come out of boys.
It's on the Kelly Roper, for the record, it's on slide 8.
Thank you. And
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your attention to detail. Lydia, did you have anything to add?
I agree with what's been said so far, especially with Manny and Rabbi Zober. I think in the 5th grade lessons, when we did puberty, I think we referred to bodies as a body with a vulva and a body with a penis. And I think that using that same, like going back and seeing whatever language we use there, I think we got to a place where we really agreed on it and all loved it. And so just being consistent with 4th grade, I think would be good. And then I think the point about not all kids love their bodies and their bodies aren't necessarily all right with them. I think that's incredibly important. I just like Googled, I was just saying like, if there were kind of more affirming messages for transgender kids, and I haven't found anything yet. I was just kind of looking, but one of the first things that came up says 4 body positive phrases that exclude trans people. Your body is already perfect. All bodies are good people. Like that was like the first thing that came up. And so I haven't got down, like I haven't looked to see yet if there's an alternative suggestion in there, but maybe just, yeah, I agree with just replacing that messaging a little bit, but I think it's great. And I agree with Kelly with the swimsuit thing. I know as a mom of boys, like we go to the pool and about half the kids have shirts now for various reasons. So, or no reason at all. So whatever.
so Sarah Kaiser, just to clarify on that one, I wonder, can you just take that phrase out? That it just, that we don't have to talk about what boys do or don't do with their nipples. They just have them too.
What's in there for the girl bodies, because it says girls usually cover them with a swimsuit, which I don't know why we need to say that
Can
either.
we take it out both times?
But whatever, and that's all I got. It's just a good lesson.
Thank you. Vanessa?
Thank you, Vanessa Vancour, for the record. Really appreciate everyone's very thoughtful feedback and notes on everything. I agree with everything that's been said. And I really appreciate it. I think both Kelly and Stephanie mentioned it's in the teacher's notes on emphasizing why it's important to know the correct terms, specifically within the context of health and safety. And I wondered if it might be worth putting it on a slide, and maybe it's connected to the trusted adults you can speak to. Because in the teacher's notes, it might have even given an example where it said if something is wrong, you can tell someone using the correct terminology. And I know that we've talked about this in other lessons on the importance of arming children who may not be aware that there's maybe something they're experiencing is not safe or healthy. And I just really wanted to offer that to the group to maybe be more explicit with that in why it's important from a health and safety reason, and put that in front of them in the event that the teacher doesn't say it.
Thank you for making that really important point.
Andrea Thompson for the record. Yes, what everyone else said looks. I have nothing else to contribute. Everyone already covered everything, so. Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
None at this time.
Thank you. So we've had wonderful, lots of agreement, good discussion. Yes, Rochelle?
Manny's raising his hand.
Oh, yes, Manny.
I'll stand up next time, Ashley, and do this so you can see me.
I'm sorry. Gosh.
Oh, the camera's over there. See, I didn't even know where the camera was. Now I know. Just kind of to 'cause hearing what everybody was saying about this, and really thinking kind of also what Rabbi Zober was saying too. Vanessa, first, I think that's a really good suggestion. I think we probably add that at the very end, so that this way we have that lasting message at the very end. But Lydia, also kind of to follow up with like what you guys are saying, is there a way that we can be body, like, is there anything that we can say that can be body positive while also being trans inclusive? Because I'm with you. I've been kind of trying to look through a bunch of things, and I don't know what we can say that kind of meshes them both together without potentially having somebody feel excluded, or without like shooting down like, oh no, your body's like not perfect, and having somebody suddenly feel bad about them either, though, which I think both of those are really important. But on my own, I'm drawing a blank. I don't know what we could say to incorporate everybody.
Lydia, just for the record, this website, and I don't know that this website is any, high authority, reputable source or not. This is just me playing online and seeing what we can find. This one has 2 suggestions, or it has more than 2, but there was one, it said, all bodies have value and all bodies deserve our care, or anything that emphasizes self-care was a suggestion instead.
I think it may be that we need to think
no.
about it and give Rochelle the chance to look into some things.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay, can I see if there's any more public comment? Thank you, Andrea.
No, not at this time.
Okay, and do we have anyone in the room who'd like to speak for public comment on this item?
No.
Thank you. All right. So we could certainly continue to discuss if we need, but otherwise I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I'll attempt the motion here, and you guys just tell me if it's wrong here, okay? I'm Manuel Magana, motion that we review this lesson with the added changes that Rochelle takes from the committee. Yeah, I completely messed up that motion. I'm sorry, guys.
You can just withdraw.
I withdraw that motion. I did not say that right at all. Somebody else, please.
I'll try it.
Thank you.
I, Sarah Kaiser, move that we return this lesson to Rochelle to look only at the issues that we've talked about tonight in the meeting, and that we review it again in our next meeting.
I'm Manny Magana, second that motion.
Excellent, thank you. And just checking one last time, was there anyone ready for public comment on this item?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so all in favor of motion by Sarah Linda Kaiser, seconded by Manny, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, I see there. Thank you. And any opposed, say no. Wonderful. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, so much. Okay, and so as we discussed at the opening of this meeting, we are moving 2.04 to our next meeting. And so looking at item 3.01, public comment, is there any public comment for this item?
Yes, we've received electronic public comment from Joe Morabito.
Thank you, sir. And is there anyone in the room who'd like, or in the building who'd like to give public comment?
Not at this time.
Thank you so much. And so with that, I just want to say thank you all again, everyone, for your time and commitment to this. It's really important. You're doing really important work. Item 3.02, announcement of our next meeting, December 13th, 2021. And today at 7:08, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Y'all drive safe.